Yeah. Good afternoon and welcome to the Vale of Glamorgan Cabinet meeting taking place today on the 19th of June 2025. I'm Councillor Bronwyn Brooks, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places, and I'm chairing the meeting today on behalf of the Leader of the Vale of Glamorgan Council and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources, Councillor Liz Burnett, who sends his apologies for the meeting today. May I remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all participants, if they're in the chamber or attending remotely, please mute yourselves when you're not speaking and that'll help avoid then any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if attending in the chamber, or use the raise hand function if you're coming in remotely. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or to grab the attention of the chair, as myself as chair, or one of the Democratic Services officers. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they're addressing the committee, then they should let the chair or Democratic officer know. And if you have a webcam, then it may be helpful to try turning that off, as this will help with the broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so at least you can hear and be heard. So I'm going to move on to the agenda proper. So the first item is apologies for absence. We've received apologies, I think, from Councillor Liz Burnett and Councillor Sandra Perks. I don't think we've had any others.
No further apologies. Everyone else is either attending in the chamber or remotely.
Lovely. Okay. So item 2, which are the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of June 2025. I'm happy to move those minutes. If somebody
I'm
wants
happy to second.
Lovely, thank you. Go in. And then item 3, which is to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interest under the Council's Code of Conduct. And I know we do have a couple today. So, right, so Mark, did you want to come in first and give your apologies?
Yeah, I will do it. I got two items where I'm declaring it an interest. The first one is on item 4, LA Governors Panel. As I am one of the candidates, I'm going to remove myself from the room. Okay, because obviously I've got a prejudicial and personal interest in that. And second one, number 7, placemaking plans. I got dispensation under the placemaking, not placemaker, under the agenda in terms of reshaping services.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Matt?
Councillor Birch.
Oh, Councillor Birch, Rhiannon?
Councillor Birch, you have your hand raised. Councillor, could we ask you to press your request to speak button?
Sorry, on item 7, please, I have dispensation to speak and vote on placemaking plans.
Just to clarify, Chair, for the meeting and for the recording as well, item 7 does refer to placemaking plans. It was advised Cabinet members connected to the areas under discussion within the report had a dispensation to speak and obviously take decisions at meetings of both town councils and the Vale of Glamorgan Council on the reshaping programme. Item 7 under placemaking is very much part of the reshaping agenda, working with communities, co-commissioning and co-production to design solutions for towns as part of the government's regeneration agenda. The monitoring officer, having reflected on the nature of the agenda item in the context of the reshaping agenda, was satisfied that members affected could rely on the dispensation was granted by Standards Committee. So even though there are members of Cabinet who are connected to the wards under agenda item 7, they are able to take part because they have dispensation from Standards.
Okay, that's lovely. So thank you for that clarification. So obviously we will include that then within the minutes. Okay, so the next item then is item 4, which is the Local Authority Governors Panel. I think, Mark, you're going to leave the room. We will come and get you, I promise. Okay, so to Rhiannon, I'm going to hand over to you for this report.
Thank you. This report is an account of the appointments panel for governors, which was carried out last week. We had a good number of applications, actually. We were pleased to be able to fill virtually all of the vacancies that came up. I recused myself from the meeting for 2 applications from Councillor Mark Wilson for the schools he wished to apply for. The meeting was then taken by somebody else within the room and those applications were passed. So other than that, all of those I oversaw was carried out successfully. So I'm going to hand over to Bronwyn for the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Rhiannon. Yeah, we've got 2 recommendations before us today. The first recommendation is that the following appointments be made to the schools as set out below, and there is a list there on page 2 going into page 3. And you'll note that the second one, the All Saints Church in Wales Primary, that remains vacant. And then that will take me into the second recommendation, is that Vale of Glamorgan councillors representing wards in Barry be considered for the vacant position at All Saints Church in Wales Primary School, with the panel then being consulted for their approval of applicants identified. And the aim of that then is to appoint to this position, obviously, as soon as possible, and to avoid a prolonged period of vacancy. So I will like to move those 2 recommendations.
And I will second it.
Thank you, Gwyn. Okay, we'll just get Mark back into the room. Okay, just bear with us.
Please, not gone too far.
On his way. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is actually a report of the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources, who's, as I said, has given her apologies for today. So I will take forward this item on her behalf. So this is the Cabinet Annual Strategic Forward Work Programme, June 2025 to April 2026. And the Cabinet Quarterly Work Programmes, January to March 2025 and April to June 2025. Now, just as a bit of a background, the Cabinet Annual Strategic Forward Work Programme sets out matters which the Executive and the Council are likely to consider during the period of May 25 to April 26. Due to changes required as a result of the reshaping scrutiny proposals that were agreed by full council at the meeting on 28th of April 2025, the Forward Work Programme required further consultation prior to being published in order to update the references within the new Vale of Glamorgan Council scrutiny structure. So the intention of the work programme is to ensure a clear correlation between the role and work programme of Cabinet with the programme of the work of scrutiny committees and the Council's strategic leadership team. So this report includes at Appendix 1, the Cabinet Annual Strategic Work Programme for the period June 25 to April 26. And the work programme sets out likely strategic policy reports, performance reports, as well as budget setting and financial reviewing and monitoring reports to be scheduled throughout the year. It also indicates the potential role of scrutiny, as well as the titles that will be considered by full council. And following consideration and approval of Appendix 1 will be uploaded onto the council's website. So Appendices 2 and 3 to the report details the report submitted for the quarters January to March and April to June 2025, and details of progress to date, together with comments regarding any slippage for Cabinet's consideration. So I've got 2 recommendations here for us today. Is that the Cabinet approves the Annual Strategic Work Programme attached to Appendix 1 for the period June 2025 to April 2026, and that this is published on the Council's website. And the second recommendation, that the updates to the Cabinet quarterly work programmes for January to March and April to June 2025, attached appendices 2 and 3 be endorsed. And I'd like to move those recommendations.
I will second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think, yeah, there's no dissent. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 6. So again, this is a report of the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources, so I will take this on her behalf. So this report is the Q4 Sickness Absence Report 24 to 25. Now, just a bit of background there. The levels of sickness absence within the Council are reported to Cabinet every 6 months. So this report sets out the sickness absence information for the period the 1st of April 24 to the 31st of March 25. And that includes corporate and school employees. It also includes details of sickness absence figures for previous years for comparison. And I think really importantly is that this report acknowledges work and commitment of all managers, employees and trade union colleagues in relation to the continual management of sickness absence. A number of initiatives have been introduced by the Council to manage the key drivers in tackling presenteeism, such as improving digital applications, access, lifestyle and wellbeing programmes, and managing the use of annual leave. Line managers are always instrumental in looking after employee health and wellbeing, and that's really important that we do that at the outset. We consider it very important that staff are given the support they require, and we are working with colleagues then within health and safety, occupational health and organisational development and learning to support our staff who are working from home. And support is also provided to staff that continue to work in the front line, particularly in our waste areas, social care and schools teams. The HR Business Partnership team continues to work closely with occupational health and managers on an individual management basis. And the prompt action of managers is prioritised to keep those absences within target. But also, as I said, putting the person at the very the front of whatever pathway is decided on, because it's really important about that well-being of our staff members as well. I mean, staff members will be aware that in all cases of stress and anxiety, employees are automatically referred to occupational health for advice. They're offered counselling support, and managers are offered training and support in completing stress risk assessments. A revised mental health and wellbeing policy incorporates detailed advice and guidance, as well as the responsibilities of managers, occupational health and staff in recognising and dealing with stress. The policy also provides clear expectations in responding to issues of stress and associated mental health issues. And under item 5, then we've got positive health promotion. And I think we actually list out there quite clearly about the work that's continuing to develop the positive health support, and they're laid out there as well. And I think it's really important that all that is there, and about that, excuse me, the health and support that is available for people. And I think in addition to all of that, the HSW team and the occupational health team have commenced a joint piece of work to normalise menopause across the council, following attendance of a menopause conference provided by the Centre of Insight. And menopause drop-in sessions are also available via occupational health. If you go to item 6 then, which are, and this is following feedback from the Scrutiny Committee, and this is about the new sickness reasons. So there was quite a bit of discussion, and then we had feedback from the Scrutiny Committee to reduce the other reasons selected for sickness, and I use it other in inverted there. So, excuse me, that review has been completed, and the other reason has been now moved from the first reason to the 8th for 24-25 data. Just bear with me. I do apologise. I just had a bit of a tickly throat there and a bit of a cough. So moving back to the report there. So 6.3 is the new sickness reason have been introduced on Oracle Fusion from the 1st of April, following those discussions made at Scrutiny Committee. And I think this will improve the reporting of sickness absence across the council and schools. And the reasons are listed out there on pages 4 and over the page to 5 as well. So I've got 2 recommendations with us before us today. The first one, that the report and the April 24 to March 2025 sickness absence figures provided in Appendix A be noted. And secondly, that the report be referred to the Resources Scrutiny Committee for consideration, with any recommendations referred back to Cabinet for further consideration. And I'd like to move those recommendations.
Happy to support. Second,
Thank you, Gwyn. I think everybody else has no dissent. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 7, which is actually my report. These are placemaking plans. So it's the placemaking plans for the three of the 4 towns, which is Cowbridge, Llantwit and Penarth. So they're a little bit further ahead than the one in Barry. The one in Barry is yet to come, or yet to go to public consultation, and then to come to us before Cabinet then as well. So just to give a bit of background, placemaking is about creating better places by putting people at the heart of planning and design. And it focuses on how spaces look, how they feel, and how they function. And the aim of this is to actually bring communities together. But also those practical needs then is to make the towns and neighbourhoods more vibrant, inclusive and sustainable. The aim is to make places work for people. So the Placemaking Wales Charter was developed by Welsh Government and the Design Commission for Wales in collaboration with Placemaking Wales Partnership. And this is it's a multi sort of agency group representing professions and organisations working within the built and natural environment. So the Charter builds on the strength and focus on placemaking in policy and practice in Wales, and aims to provide that common understanding of the range of considerations that go into placemaking. And the Charter also outlines the 6 placemaking principles, which are people, place, movement, public realm, mix of uses, and identity. And it is a slightly longer explanation of what each one actually entails in paragraph 1.3. So Welsh Government places strong importance on the placemaking plans because they're seen as essential tools for delivering sustainable and people-focused places that improve well-being, respond to major societal challenges. And their importance stems from several key policy drivers. So central to policy delivery, so that's embedded in National Planning Policy, which is Planning Policy Wales, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and programmes like Transforming Towns and Building Better Places. The focus on people and place, and this is about advocating for development that puts people at the heart of decision making. As I've already touched on, creating those places that are inclusive and healthy and safe and attractive to live, work and visit. Supports the nature and climate goals, and this is about enabling that local action on climate change, and this is about encouraging compact, walkable towns, trying to reduce car use and promoting green infrastructure and protecting biodiversity. It's about strengthening that local investment. So it's about having this clear, locally driven placemaking plan, and this is about accessing the funding. And ensures that any regeneration then is focused and evidence-based and aligned with the community principles as well. I think that's really important. And as I said, we have adopted those the 6 principles there. And I think this ties in as well with the Vale of Glamorgan Council's Vale 2030, working together for a brighter future corporate plan, and that sets out the council's vision to improve the economic, environmental, social and cultural well-being of its communities. So just to sort of move a little bit further on from that, it was agreed at Cabinet on the 25th of May 2023, so a little while ago now, is that we would become a signatory to the Placemaking Wales Charter. And in doing so, this allowed us to gain access to funding from the Welsh Government Transforming Towns programme. And this has been used to strengthen how the council works with local communities and identify priorities in those various towns. Further on from that, it was agreed then at Cabinet on the 18th of July 2024 to implement new governance structures for regeneration programmes and those projects delivered by the council to support the placemaking approach. These projects compose the majority of the projects to be progressed within the economic resilience theme of the reshaping programme. And then these new boards will oversee the implementation of the 4 placemaking plans for each of the Vale of Glamorgan's 4 main towns. I said we got 3 here with us today, but it'll be the same principle then when we bring the Barry one to Cabinet as well. So the plans identify specific local opportunities around themes such as public realm, reimagining underused spaces, enhancing heritage and culture, as well as supporting independent business and promoting sustainable transport. And I think it's really important to note here that we've got the 4 main towns, so as I say, it's the 3 towns here today, but they've each got their own distinct identities, and I think that's really important. So all the 3 plans promote that same integrated people-centred approach. But actually there will be those differences because it really is centred. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's actually centred around each individual town. So the adoption of these plans will support funding bids and partnership work in strengthening the case for investment through UK and Welsh Government programmes. And they will also act as a tool to lever private sector investment in town centres. So the approach that we've taken in the Vale of Glamorgan has ensured that meaningful community engagement and consultation has taken place over a longer period of time to ensure that solutions meet the needs of the town and its residents. So we've taken our time, tried not to rush these programmes, and sat down and actually listened to people. And I think it's also really worth noting that about the work that we're actually doing with the town councils, as they are a centre of this plan. And I think that's quite unique in approach in Wales, but I feel very strongly that we need to deliver these plans together, and obviously as long well with the town council as well. We've also got various groups have been involved, including sports club, churches, traders and history societies. They've all been involved in that process. The plans will also act as a way of informing better use of Section 106 funding, with data and need baked into the decision-making progress. We've already seen the benefits of that, with Section 106 funding being targeted as relatively small schemes to meet a need in a town identified via the placemaking process. So it not only allows the funding to go further, but ensures that the intervention is right for the town and its residents. And I think it's really important to note that these town plans are living documents and they will continue to evolve. And I think that's really important. This is not just the end of the road with these. It will continue to go forward. And I think those place boards that we will have in place will actually help evolve the work as it goes forward. And I do see them really as a starting point for the discussion, project developer and that greater community involvement. And I think that's really central to how we actually take these plans forward, and make them work, for everybody. So I've got 3 recommendations today. Oh, sorry, I got so carried away by the report then. Sorry, Eddie, did you want to come in? Sorry, Eddie, you're on mute.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. You could have waited 10 minutes and then saved yourself a lot of trouble then, couldn't you? Right, no, sorry. You've said much of what the purpose of the placemaking plans are. And I'd just like to highlight, some of the things you mentioned there. It's driven by the community. I know in Plantages, they involved several organisations, be it sports, a social, and even the youth. And they had the questionnaires available on open events within the town. And, so there's been, I think in the report it says over 1,000 people have contributed to this. So there are some things that are aspirational in there, but as any plan in future, you want to see how far you can go and you want the best. So we'll just have to see how that works out. And as you've indicated, it very much depends on the funding that's available. It does for me, and I will say that when we first heard of this placemaking plan, there was quite a bit of scepticism. It was almost like, oh, here we go, another review, another survey, and some consultants come in. But with the engagement with the town and the community, what's come out is the uniqueness of the town and what it provides. And you mentioned that each town has its own sort of identity, which is fabulous, and Blantyre has got its historic, in particular, obviously the church and the beaches, so it's got some benefits. I think I mentioned scepticism, but I really wanted to emphasise that having gone through this process, there's a lot of support for what this plan has come forward with. So. I can't move the recommendations because you haven't said them yet, but I'll do that later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Ruba, did you want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I mean, just quickly on the back of what Eddie's just said, that this was a unique opportunity for us as a council to work with all our communities in Penarth. For me in particular, as a ward member there, and to work with Penarth Town Council, to all the groups that are there and individuals. And it is really important that a document like this is, as you say, a living document, that this isn't the end, this is a conversation I hope will continue into the future. And as Eddie says, there is a lot to be aspirational in the document concerning Penarth, and and that's a good thing, and that's something for us to work together. But there are lots of projects, if you like, that are identified that communities themselves can take up, with the council's support. And I hope that communities within Penarth do take that up. And lastly, I really want to thank everyone that has participated in the placemaking in Penarth, because I think it has been a really good start to this conversation, which I hope will continue, and it's essential that it continues going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ruba. I'm going to bring in Mark. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Just a few points here I would like to note. Obviously, the first thing I'd like to emphasise, this is very much a live document. It's not something that is step in stone. It will change, it will evolve over a period of time. I mean, an example, for instance, is doing up the Penarth station. Yes, a lot of us would be keen to do that, but really it's Transport for Wales's responsibility. And this is why it's very important that we make sure that we work with various stakeholders. I mean, this document belongs to the towns of Clanwick, Cowbridge and Penarth respectively. It's not a council document in that sense, although obviously the council was hoping to spearhead it, I would say, to a certain extent, and to act as a catalyst for it. So clearly, I think this is where it's going. There will be further consultation on this as we move forward in these 3 towns. So I'm happy to endorse any recommendation you may say about it, Councillor Brooks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Ruba, I've got your hand still up. Is that a legacy hand? Or did you want to come in again? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've got 3 recommendations in front of us today. The first one is the Cabinet approves the placemaking plans for Cowbridge, Llantwit Major and Penarth, and they're set out in appendices A to C respectively. 2, that delegated authority is granted to the Director of Place in consultation with the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places to make minor amendments as required for formatting, clarity or alignment with funding opportunities or policy. And thirdly, and I'm going to slightly add into this recommendation as well, is that the placemaking plans are used as strategic tools to guide investment, partnership working and funding bids at each town as a starting point for discussion, project development and community involvement. So I would just like to sort of strengthen that last recommendation. And I'd like to move those recommendations.
I would second those recommendations. Madam Deputy Leader, I think the last sentence that you put in is very important for that, because it is a starting point for discussion, and I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no dissent, and I think we've had a good discussion around that, because they are really important, these placemaking plans, as we move forward, aren't they? And it is about very much that live document and that continued involvement with our town councils and communities. So I'm going to move on to item 8, and I'm going to have a little bit of a break, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Mark Wilson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Leader. Yes, this report is about moving traffic contraventions. Okay, and I'll do a bit of background first of all on this. Basically, around last year, we've secured funding of around £242,000, 716, from the Welsh Government's Safer Routes in Community grant to expand its School Streets initiative. And this helps make travel to and from schools safer for pupils, families and the wider community. As many people know, in Dryden Road in Penarth, which is adjacent to Fairfield School, we got one of these streets, and it has the trial, and I would say it's finished off the trial, has been very successful. And so clearly we want to extend this. And this scheme, well, I've talked about in terms of Safer Routes community, restricts vehicle access around schools during key drop-off and pick-up times. And that's what's happened at Fairfield School. And that encourages people to walk, cycle and scoot. To take part, schools must develop an active travel school plan. And so far, maybe in anticipation for perhaps more safer routes around schools, so far, 20 of the 53 schools in the Vale have completed this step, supported by Sustrans, and very much Sustrans are involved very much in the scheme in Dryden Road and the roads off that area. In addition to school streets, the council is also working to tackle other moving traffic offences, and these are things like illegal turns, one-way violations, and misuse of bus lanes across the Vale. We also commissioned a second camera enforcement vehicle, is actually being purchased, along with new mobile ANPR cameras, allowing for broader, more consistent enforcement. Recent surveys revealed high levels of illegal vehicles use in designated bus lanes, with over 1,000 unauthorised vehicles detected in 4 days in one location in Wenvo, and that's the road going towards Culverhouse Cross, and highlighting the need for stronger enforcement. To support this, the council is applying for powers from Welsh Government to enforce moving traffic offences directly, and if approved, Cardiff Council will manage the administration on behalf of the Vale, streamlining processes and reducing costs. And this is a point I really want to emphasise here, that all revenue generated through penalty charge notices will be reinvested to local highway and transport improvements, helping to create safer, more accessible streets for everyone. And this is a crucial point because the money be reinvested in our roads, making them safer and on pedestrian areas. And that will hopefully reduce the amount of collisions. And I think we all want to do that. And then I'm going to move to the recommendations, which I have 4. That Cabinet approves proposal to apply for moving traffic convention powers to Welsh Government to assess the implementation of school streets and other associated moving traffic offences throughout the Vale of Glamorgan. That Cabinet agrees to implement the enforcement of moving traffic offences across the Vale of Glamorgan as necessary. That Cabinet agrees to the expansion of school street schemes across the Vale of Glamorgan. That authority is delegated to the head of neighbourhood services and the Cabinet member for neighbourhood services and housing for future schemes at locations to be determined. And I so move.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think it's a really timely report. I think we've all raised concerns and we've seen people misappropriating how they're used in some of these areas, and it's risky and can be very dangerous as well. So this is about people's safety, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm happy to second those recommendations.
Thank you.
Yep, I think everybody's happy and agrees with that. Lovely, thank you. So moving on to item 9. Now, the next 2 reports are reports of the Cabinet Member for Public Sector in Housing and Tenant Engagement. So I'm taking these reports, as she's not with us today, on her behalf. So the first one, this is the Housing PAS 2035. And this is a framework for managing energy retrofit projects in domestic buildings, and it's a refurbishment project. So this is a part 1 report. We'll also be having a part 2 report to go along with that as well. So just by way of background, the Housing Development and Investment team have identified, or they continue to identify, packages of work. And this is to ensure that the council's housing stock maintains compliance with the WHQS 2023. That's the Welsh Housing Quality Standard. So as part of that now, 2 blocks of flats and 1 house has been identified for major improvement works, as they've been experiencing major damp and mould issues because of the external component failing. So this report then is about providing information about this phase 2 PV installation scheme. So this scheme identified retrofit works to resolve damp and mould, along with actually reducing carbon emissions at block 3 to 6 in Cae Stumpy, Cowbridge, block 2 to 4 in Lonna'r Eglwys, and 21 Lee Close in Lantwick Major. So the works will involve the installation of external and wall insulation, photovoltaic solar panels, I've said that right, roof works, lowering of pathways and associated external works. Now, there are no leaseholders associated with the works, and therefore the Section 20 leasehold tender process isn't required from any tender process that was followed. So the Housing Development Investment team tendered the work through Celta Wales, and they were seeking a single principal contractor to deliver the Joint Contracts Tribunal intermediate contract. And then the successful contractor will be appointed following a 2-stage assessment, with stage 1 being a pre-qualification questionnaire, and the second stage awarded on the most advantageous tender. And that includes price, quality and social value. So the invitation to tender was published on the 25th of November 2024, and the closing date was 6th of January 2025. So there were 18 expressions of interest and 5 tender bids received. And then when they checked those key tender documents, all the 5 tender bidders had returned the required documents. So then these moved on to what they call the PQQ stage. So the 5 contractor submission passed the pre-qualification questionnaire process, scoring above 87. And they were then assessed on stage 2 of the process, where scores were based on 50% for price, 40% for quality, and 10% of social value. And then the details of that refurbishment project tender is set out later in the part 2 item, as I've already referred to. So I've just got the one recommendation for us today, is that Cabinet notes the contents of the report with a view to taking decisions on the award of the contract detailed within the part 2 report later on this agenda. So I'd like to move that recommendation.
I will second the recommendation.
Lovely, thank you. I see no dissent, so everybody's in agreement. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to item 10. Again, this is the Cabinet member for public sector housing tenant engagement, which I'm going to take on her behalf today. So this is housing IHP phase 2, which is the solar PV installation scheme for 25 to 26. So again, by way of background, the Housing Development and Investment Team were previously successful in receiving Welsh Government IHP, which is the Optimised Retrofit Programme, ORP1, grant funding, and that was to undertake a pilot scheme to install hybrid heating installations within approximately 50 council housing owned properties. So these works involve the installation of an intelligent energy system and an air source heat pump within each property. So the system would use primarily the heat pump, and the heat could be boosted by a gas boiler if the tenant needed to boost the tenant to the heating more quickly. Unfortunately, the time of the installation coincided with the huge increases that we had with energy in the UK and other parts of the world actually as well. So this led to tenants concerned then and complained that this system was too expensive to run or they were not working properly. And then some of these then, there was a real risk of fuel poverty, which was that, which is what we were not trying to achieve with these. It was just the timings of the installation alongside the increase in energy prices. So basically the ASHP and the IES then were isolated. So as a result, they've now identified a package of works which includes a number of properties with the hybrid heating systems installed, which are suitable for photovoltaic solar panels with a battery backup. And then by installing these systems, it will reduce the electrical costs for the tenants, along with further improving the carbon footprint of the properties and reducing the potential for fuel poverty. So this report is actually providing that information. The schemes identified the following retrofit works to be completed to reduce energy costs and decarbonise 44 properties throughout the Vale of Glamorgan, 3 of which are in conservation areas and 6 of which are within conservation areas and areas of outstanding beauty. So down to that, there will be external enabling works and the installation of PV systems and associated equipment. And again, as with the last report, there are no leaseholders associated with the works, and therefore the Section 20 leasehold tender process is not required from any tender process followed. So again, we use the Sell to Wales to tender the work, and again we were looking for a single principal contractor to deliver the Joint Contracts Tribunal intermediate contract. So the successful contractor will be appointed following a 2-stage assessment, with stage 1 being the pre-qualification questionnaire, and the second stage being the most advantageous tender, and again with price, quality and social value. So the invitation to tender was published on the 25th of November 2024, and again with the closing date was 2025. There were 53 expressions of interest with 16 tender bids received. And when they were checking the key tender return documents, one bidder had not returned the required documents and was removed then from the evaluation. So the remaining 15 tender bidders moved to the PQQ stage, and they all passed the pre-qualification questionnaires, process scoring above 87. Those bids then were assessed on stage 2 of the process, with scores based on 50% for price, 40% for quality, and 10% social value. And then the detail of that tender is actually set out alongside in a Part 2 report to accompany this Part 1 report. So I've just got one recommendation for us today, is that Cabinet notes the contents of the report with a view to taking decisions on the award of the contract detailed within the Part 2 report later on in this agenda. And I'm happy to move that recommendation.
Happy to support the recommendations.
Okay,
Seconded.
thank you, Gwyn. And I see no dissent in the room or online, so thank you very much. Okay, so we're now going to move into Part 2. And this is in accordance then with the section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. So I'd like to move that we move into Part 2.
Oh, Part 2.
Thank you.
Bear with us for a moment.
Okay. Yep.